And then have the honor of making sure everybody meets our majority leader in the Senate, our senator.
UFCW Blue.
Yes. Okay. Let's get started. Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Diana Tasta-Damer, and I'm the Secretary-Treasurer for UFCW 1189. Here's the new reality. The second the weatherman forecasts a blizzard, companies can use electronic shelf labels to hike prices, and suddenly the family looking to buy milk, bread, eggs before the storm will be forced to pay more. Corporations want you to believe that ESLs will only help the customer. Just look at Walmart. They're speeding ahead, aiming to introduce this technology in all of their grocery stores by the end of this year, promising clear, consistent prices. But they're patenting the technology to allow algorithms to change prices in real time. Now you tell me, why would a company invest millions in this technology if it were all about discounts? I don't buy it. With surveillance pricing and ESLs powered by AI, mass data collection, and automation, consumers don't stand a chance, and they won't be alone. Workers will suffer too, as the technology can be used to cut hours for workers and eventually eliminate good-paying union jobs in our communities. UFCW members know where every single product in the store is. They can help you find what you're looking for because they're the ones who are updating the prices. When I worked in the grocery store, updating prices didn't just give me valuable hours that showed up on my paycheck, it also gave me knowledge to know where products were to serve our customers better. Without that expertise, the customer experience is going to suffer. And when you're angry about a price changing on an electronic shelf label, workers, if there are any left, shouldn't be left to try to explain why AI singled you out to pay more. These predatory technologies are on our doorstep. It's time to slam the door shut and protect working families and the essential workers who feed our communities. And I want to thank the Minnesota DFL leaders and Representative Sencer-Mura for their support today, and we look forward to working with them to pass this critical legislation. Thank you, and I will hand it off to Haley.
Hello, my name is Haley. I'm an e-commerce worker at Cub Foods in Burnsville. And I'm pregnant, and I'm concerned about the surveillance pricing in grocery stores. A month ago, I was shopping a customer's order that included baby formula. If we didn't have that particular formula in stock at the dependable price listed that the family budgeted for, the family may not have been able to get the product to feed their baby. I imagined the new parents driving from store to store to be able to find the correct formula. Then, as a mom-to-be, I pictured myself doing the same thing. Babies can be fussy when it comes to changing formulas, from crying, spitting up, and sleepless nights. That's when it hit me. If grocery stores are allowed to install surveillance pricing that can change from the beginning of a shopping trip to the end, how can families be expected to budget and thrive? I'm due in August. We are so excited. I'm doing everything I can to set my family up for a good start. It's not just families at the checkout counter who are at risk. Surveillance pricing threatens our hours, and if companies automate pricing, they cut people who do that work. And then they cut the hours in other departments. We need steady hours to be able to support our families. I'm dependable, and I know that because I look in the mirror and I show up for work every day. I know the feeling when something we rely on is threatened. From the back stockroom to the dining room, grocery store workers provide reliable shopping experiences that help families thrive. Families count on us every time they walk through the grocery store doors or open our app to shop. And right now, families like mine who are budgeting for a new baby, who depend on good union grocery jobs, are counting on all legislators to protect us from surveillance pricing. If you allow prices to shift and surge based on who we are or where we shop, you are taking away families' abilities to plan, budget, and make ends meet. That's not a small thing. It is the difference between a family feeling secure versus a family feeling squeezed. Ban surveillance pricing to protect grocery store workers and families. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. My name is Jenny Winkles. I'm a pricing coordinator for Super One Foods in Two Harbors. As a pricing coordinator, I know the location of every single item in our store, and I could probably tell you the price on most of them. In my job, we deal with multiple warehouses, and inventory is constantly changing. Discounts are needed, products have to move quickly, and expiration dates are always approaching. We make it work because we're in the store every day adjusting prices week by week based on what's actually happening on the shelves. But with electronic shelf labels controlled from some AI command center in some other state, they don't know what it's like in the aisles, and it's a recipe for chaos on the store floor, creating confusion for workers and customers alike as prices could change by the second. But at the same time, high prices are already taking a toll. Grocery carts are not as full, and people aren't able to eat as healthy as they'd like. And just this last week, I spoke with an elderly customer in the freezer department looking at prepared meals, Stouffer's, lean cuisine. She told me she knew they weren't good for her, high in sodium and full of ingredients that she can't even pronounce. But she has no choice anymore because she can't afford to make meals from scratch. And that's the issue. When prices rise, we all lose the freedom to buy what we want. Our customers feel it, and we feel it too, but at least our customers know that the price of milk on a Monday will not be changing the next morning, and that allows them to budget and plan. Surveillance pricing and electronic shelf labels will make prices go haywire. Predictability and budgeting will become nearly impossible, and my coworkers and I will have to face hungry customers because AI decided their food needed to be more expensive this afternoon than it was this morning. If lawmakers don't step in, big grocers like Walmart and tech companies will move full speed ahead with these plans, and we cannot let that happen. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Samantha Sensamura, and I am a state representative from District 63A, representing South Minneapolis here at the Capitol. I'm also a working mom, and as a mom, I know that families are faced every day with difficult decisions and tiring tasks, and we don't need new forms of corporate greed to make it worse. Families shouldn't have to worry about whether that baby formula you need to buy is more expensive because an algorithm has pegged you as someone who can be exploited. With this legislation, we are putting our foot down and saying no more big tech exploitation, no more unchecked corporate profiteering, and no more actions that make life even less affordable for everyday Minnesotans. All I've heard from constituents since coming back to the Capitol is that they want us to be laser focused on affordability and that they are deeply concerned about big tech surveillance of our purchases. Wealth inequality in America is nearing record highs. While you and I have to budget to get through every month, billionaires and massive corporations are deploying AI and other technologies to squeeze out more profit from us to benefit their bottom lines and stock prices. At the same time, we at the legislature need to be having a serious conversation about how automation is coming for our jobs and what it will mean for our society when most people we know are out of work. Surveillance pricing and electronic shelf labeling are coming for good union jobs at grocery stores, and we need to stand with these workers to protect their livelihoods. The Minnesota legislature has the power and authority it needs to stop this exploitative practice before it gets off the ground. That's why I'm proud to author this legislation, and that's why I'm proud to stand with these courageous workers and advocates who are fighting to protect everyday Minnesotans. Thank you. And I'll turn it over to my colleague, Leader Murphy.
Thank you, Representative. It is good to be with you today. My name is Erin Murphy, and I am the proud Majority Leader of the Minnesota Senate. Senator Port is the author of this legislation in the Minnesota Senate, and she is a skilled and determined legislator, bringing her voice in our caucus and into the Minnesota Senate on this important issue for Minnesotans right now. I can't stop thinking about the brave new world we are facing, wrestling with in real time, and it's important for us to take up this issue. I was a union grocery worker while I was in college, but more important, I was the oldest of 5 kids in a working family, and it was my responsibility to go with my mom to the grocery store to make sure that everything that she put in the cart equaled what she had in her wallet. And when we didn't have the money to pay for it, it went back on the shelf. We were tight budgeters. I learned that at an early age, And I think this legislation is intended to make sure that families can continue to do that, feed their families and thrive. I also want to thank everybody who is here today with us, knowing, of course, that coming to the Capitol these days is more expensive than it used to be. Gas prices in Minnesota are up 70 cents a gallon from what they were a month ago. That's a 25% increase, and diesel is up over $1 a gallon. We're seeing those prices at the gas station, and we'll see them in the supply chain as shipping costs start hitting us in grocery stores. Donald Trump's government is hell-bent on driving up costs, from foreign adventures on tariffs and war to domestic policy like spiking health insurance and energy bills. And it's our job here in the legislature to fight for Minnesotans on every front, for every dollar, to make their life more affordable and to keep money in their household budget. A ban on surveillance pricing is one of the most obvious ways that we can do that. This is legislation that gets at two things that I think are deeply bother Minnesotans and Americans right now. One is right there in the name, surveillance pricing, the idea that we are being watched, that algorithms and AI are tools big corporations and big tech have access to, and we don't, that our names and even our faces are popping up on lists and screens that we're not aware of, and that our personal, economic, and sensitive data is being collected, sold, and used against us. The other issue is just a fundamental sense of fairness. If my neighbor and I go to the same store on the same day and stand in the same aisle, the bananas should cost the same. We're learning with reports about surveillance pricing that it's not hurting the people with the money to spend on bananas, regardless of what they cost, but instead, it is hurting the people who can't afford the ever-changing price of bananas. In fact, as prices go up for people who have no other choice, people who live in food deserts, a senior on a fixed income, a new mom, as those prices vary from moment to moment, those become profit opportunities for big corporations. But they're hurting Minnesotans and families across the state of Minnesota, and we should not stand for that. If your business model tries to make the most of people who can afford it the least, something is broken. If the algorithm tells you to maximize profit off a poor mom buying diapers, turn the algorithm off, or we will. As policymakers, it's our job to step in and to fight for data privacy, for fairness, and for consumers over corporate profits. This bill does that, and we're going to keep pushing for this and every other idea that helps Minnesotans get by and make ends meet. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Rena Wong, the great.
Thanks, you. Hello, I am Rena Wong. I am the president of the United Food and Commercial Workers, Local 663. So you have now all heard the case against AI-powered electronic shelf labels and the exploitative pricing practices that they enable. As you've heard, prices aren't going to improve, the shopping experience is not going to improve, data privacy is not going to improve, workers' pay is not going to improve, and customer service is also not going to improve. The only thing that is going to improve is the bottom line for big grocery stores like Walmart. The industry likes to say that these are hypotheticals. These are just what ifs. But remember, it was in St. Paul, here in Minnesota, that experts found that the online grocery shopping platform Instacart was conducting pricing experiments, charging different prices for different customers. They found that prices varied by nearly 7%. For context, that's the equivalent to nearly twice the total increase in food prices in the Twin Cities in these last 3 years. If people want to protect themselves from these practices, first, they should visit UFCW members like Jenny at the Super One, or shop online directly from Cub Food members like Haley. Second, they should contact elected officials here in Minnesota and urge them to join us in this fight. If we have learned anything over the last 20 years, it is that big tech does not deserve the red carpet in grocery stores. That goes for surveillance pricing and electronic shelf labels now too. This afternoon, we look forward to meeting with lawmakers on both sides of the aisle about this threat that is facing Minnesota workers and families. UFCW members are not going to stand by idly and let harmful, predatory technology into our grocery stores. We are going to stand up and we are going to fight, and together we can win to protect both consumers and grocery workers. I want to thank Senator Murphy, Representative Sencer-Mira, and Representative Hansen for joining us today, and all of the speakers and all of our members here today to share their comments on these issues and supporting what is so important for all Minnesotans. So with that, we'd like to open it up for any questions.
Was in committee this morning, it stalled. I'm wondering if any of the lawmakers actually see a path forward for this bill?
Yeah, so there's a number of proposals at the Capitol right now that are trying to tackle this issue in different ways. I believe you're referring to Representative Greenman's bill, which bans surveillance pricing in many different spaces, not just grocery stores. And I hadn't heard, but I guess according to you, and I'm not surprised that it didn't make it out of committee this morning. You know, I would say that coming into this legislative session, I would have thought that given, you know, what I have heard from colleagues on the right about their concerns generally about surveillance, concerns I think that, you know, both sides of the aisle have around data, you know, practices. I'm surprised by that, right? I think I would have thought that there would be more bipartisan support to make sure that Minnesota consumers are protected. I hope that my GOP colleagues will continue to stand with, I think, the values they've had for a long time around being really wary of surveillance of everyday Minnesotans and not stand on the side of corporate greed.
I'm curious if you see these bills as being more proactive or reactive to what we're seeing in Minnesota.
I would say both. I think, you know, the sad story that I think about just big tech generally over the last couple decades is that we see that government is often 5, 10, 20 steps behind these companies. But I do think that there is some growing awareness that we need to stop that trend. We have kind of let big tech run the table on many things, and we have just kind of blindly said, you all can regulate yourself, and in the spirit of innovation, we will let you do that. I think we've learned our lesson. I think we can see that that does not benefit consumers, that doesn't benefit our kids who are, you know, being endangered by big tech. It doesn't support our workers, and it doesn't support our families. So I think there's a growing sense here at the Capitol that we need to be as proactive as possible. You know, maybe true surveillance pricing is not here in a huge way in Minnesota. Maybe electronic shelf labeling is not here in Minnesota yet. So let's do what we can while we can to stop these companies in their tracks.
Question for Jenny, because you work to do the pricing in your store, right? Folks will say like, oh, any store's rewards program, they're looking at what's being sold when you scan your card, and they're using that to affect prices already. How is this different than that? Do you see a difference between this and that? And would you answer?
Yeah. Sure.
Thank you.
So, gosh, I don't even know. Do you wanna?
Yeah,
Okay.
You know, the reality is that nobody is saying that we should not make progress, right? We understand that progress is happening, but progress ought to be responsible. It should be responsible to consumers, and it should be responsible to the workers who keep us all fed. It does feel a lot sad sometimes to know that these folks kept us fed throughout the pandemic when everybody else was staying at home. And now, like, all of a sudden, technology is gonna be the thing that saves us, and we're gonna forget that there's real people and real jobs and that these are real communities that are going to be impacted.
Which jobs do you see going away because of this? How many, basically, and which ones?
Within grocery stores, there's a job classification called, sometimes they call it a scanning coordinator, sometimes they call it a pricing coordinator. And that job exists within every grocery store. For us at UFCW 663, when we ran the list, it's about 150 workers. There is also another about 350, they call them department heads, who do the work of making sure that the orders are put in correctly. For example, it's Christmas time, eggnog sells better. They're the ones who have the industry knowledge, who have the expertise, and they're gonna know what is needed at Christmas time, at Easter time, at Halloween, on Mother's Day, right? This is an additional 350 jobs. So we can say for our membership alone, that's 500 jobs. That's not every grocery store in Minnesota. And so then what happens when we implement AI-powered technology and electronic shelf labeling, and these thousands of workers are out of jobs in Minnesota? And these are good union jobs. These are folks with full-time employment, making family-sustaining wages with full family health insurance and a secure retirement. What happens to those jobs? What happens to these people? What happens to those communities when that income is no longer coming in? And what happens to consumers who are now tracked from the time they are starting to take prenatal vitamins to the time they need diapers?
I think proponents of the electronic shelf labels say that they allow resources to be reallocated throughout the store to other areas of customer service. I'm curious what you make of that argument.
You know, I think folks are going to make up reasons all of the time about why we should continue listening to big tech, why we should continue listening to the Walmarts and the big corporations of the world so that they can make more money. And I'm not an expert on AI. I lead a local union, I negotiate contracts, I'm happiest when I'm talking to members. So I don't know what all of the intentions are, but I do know that if we do not take a stand as Minnesota, that workers will be hurt and that consumers will be hurt. And so whatever the what ifs that folks would like to play out, the most important thing is that we center working people and we center shoppers who are having an affordability crisis in this moment.
I'll say one thing about that too. So I think that we hear that common refrain about a lot of concerns we have about different sectors and how automation or AI will affect that sector. You know, I'm thinking we're having a not too different debate right now about automated vehicles and what that will do to our rideshare drivers and our rideshare economy here in Minnesota. Just thinking a couple days ago in committee, you know, we heard about the hundreds of thousands of jobs that will be created by these automated vehicles. So even if people don't make a living anymore from driving, there will be these other jobs to go into. But when we start to ask questions about what those jobs will look like, we're not getting a lot of answers. So I would say to these companies, show us, right? Help us understand what the plan is for how automation will bring jobs to our economy. But I don't think we should blindly trust that.
Back up a little bit too. I know, I was a UFCW member back in the 90s when they implemented.
Congratulations.
But they implemented the check stands that did not require a checker. And I'm wondering if you know how many of those jobs have gone away since that technology arrived.
The self-checkout. Who here loves the self-checkout? Nobody. Including customers, right? Including customers do not love the self-checkout.
I love them because I know all the produce codes, but
That's because you were a member for a long time. You are unique in that. Yes, self-checkout, those jobs, but anybody who has shopped at a grocery store nowadays, what you see is a section of self-checkouts, you see lines, you see people waiting to be able to pay for their groceries with their crying kid next to them. I have them, and they're real annoying when they start crying at you, and you have nothing to do but stand there because you cannot control how many people are on that front end to be able to check you out. And it's not the cashier's fault. They want to be able to help customers, but if you're replacing people and saying with technology and saying technology is the solution, and then technology turns out, in the case of self-checkout, to not be the solution, that's a problem. And we have the ability right now to preempt that. And so let's take the steps necessary to be responsible and ensure that these jobs are protected and consumers as well. Yes.
On the surveillance pricing, I think New York has maybe requires companies to disclose when they use personal data to set prices. Is that something that you would consider in terms of trying to get broader bipartisan support, or do you not think that, does enough to address the concern?
You know, there's a difference between disclosing that I'm spying and tracking on you and preventing me spying and tracking on you. Those are very distinct things. And I would say that Minnesotans are going to veer towards wanting to not be spied on and tracked on for their purchases. In terms of legislation, I think I'm going to leave it to our esteemed
Agreed.
lawmakers
Agreed.
to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's a number of proposals, but I would agree. I don't think disclosure is what I hear my constituents asking for. They're saying just stop this predatory practice before it starts.
One more question, and maybe to clarify on my earlier question, like a lot of stores have like loyalty programs, right? And people are like, oh, I love using my Cub Foods loyalty number, but they're concerned that like Cub could be taking that data, right, and using it to impact prices. So I guess, do you have concerns with programs like those? Are they different than what we're looking at when you're talking about surveillance pricing? Because on the surface, it seems like it could be the same, right?
There's another group coming.
Yeah, we probably got to wrap
Oh,
up. Yeah.
sorry. Sorry, we have to wrap up, but, nobody is trying to take people's coupons away, right? If that is the concern, nobody is trying to take anybody's coupons away. What we are saying is ensure that there are guardrails and make sure that jobs are protected. That is what is most important to us. Thank you all.
Thank you.